what do you have to deal with in a down market? Well, there's 4 or 5 psychological things. You've got ambivalence, you've got uncertainty and apprehension.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. I am truly excited for this episode because as a marketer, as a business owner, as someone who coaches people on how to grow their business, I've been heavily influenced. And I think anyone who works in marketing or helps grow businesses, whether they know of this person or not, has been influenced by him. And that's my next guest, which is Jay Abraham. He's the founder and CEO of the Abraham Group. He spent his entire career solving complex problems and fixing underperformance businesses. He has significantly increased the bottom lines of over 10,000 clients in more than 1,000 industries and over 7,200 sub-industries worldwide. He's dealt with virtually every type of business scenario and issue, and has studied and solved almost every type of business question, challenge, and opportunity. You're not going to want to miss this one because every business owner or anyone fascinated with business growth can really benefit from this episode. He's called the $1 billion man for a reason. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Check it out. Jay, welcome to the podcast. I mean, what a pleasure it is of mine to welcome you here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It sounds like you're doing noble work for admirable entrepreneurs, large and small. So if I can make a little contribution and move them and you a little bit on your way upward, it's my pleasure. Let's get on with it.
Perfect. I want to start. When I first met you, I don't know if you remember this. It was with we were at a mastermind, Ollie Bilson, a mutual friend of ours. We were there, and what I noticed that really got you excited, what kind of elevated the conversation, was when we started talking about like tactics. It seemed to get the best quality answers. Of course, the questions are probably due to the quality of the answers are due to the quality of questions, I guess. But most of those questions were related to tactics. So I think that's how we could really make the most of our time together and really get out your brilliance. Is that okay if we start getting really tactical?
Take it on any pursuit, any path you like. I'll do my very best to support what you're trying to accomplish. Go for it.
Awesome. I'll start here. If you were starting, with creating an offer right now, and you wanted it to be differentiated, I think that's where a lot of people get stuck right now is how to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. That, whether they're a coach or whether they're an agency or they sell t-shirts, whatever it is, there's always, like, now we're just inundated with so many people doing the same things as what we may be doing. Where do you start the process of creating something that's unique and different, that's going to stand out? I want to start with, what's your process for doing that, when we both know that, creating the product first doesn't really make any sense. Yeah. So for the offer, how would you get started?
Yeah, well, I'm going to answer you in a very intriguing way. I would want to study the market I'm serving, but not the way most people do. They say, what do they want in a t-shirt? They want it to be cool, or they want it to be light, or they want it to be, you make their muscles stand out. I would look at, I was trained by masters, Jason, and they taught me from the get-go that you live in the transactional world that your client lives in when they have your product or service at work in their life or in their business. So, why do I want that shirt to make me look buff? I want to have the feeling every time I go out that I look really handsome, or I look my best, or the 2 hours a day, 5 days a week of high level weightlifting is paid off and everybody can see it, or that I can show that I have discipline. And not just, I live in the world of how would I say this? I want to know what is the reason why they want the benefit, not just the benefit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And most people don't really look at that. So I need to know what I'm trying to create for someone with the purchase, with the possession, with the protection, with the enhancement. And then I start there. And then I say, okay, how many ways can I show you, if you were the potential t-shirt buyer, that I understand you in ways nobody else does? And that's not buzzwords. It's me doing enough exploration of, and I'll get, if you want to get in, if you don't know my mind of the market theorem, I'll tell you what that is in 3 or 4 minutes. But I really understand the mind of the market. And this goes to a bunch of distinctions I have. One is the mind of the market theorem. The other is being preeminent. Being preeminent means being seen in the eyes of the market you're trying to address as the only viable source they could turn to, the most trusted advisor as an entity, as an individual, whatever you are. And as such, you achieve that by putting into words for the first time ever, or only, that what they really want or don't want, what they want to get closer to, away from, in ways and in words that no one has ever expressed to them. So it's tied together. So first thing I always want to know is, what's the reason why you want this?
So let me push you further, because I think you're about to go down, but I think we're missing a really important part, the heuristics behind that. Because getting into figuring out what they want and getting really, that sounds great, but what's your process of going down that route of actually trying to figure out what they want? Like, ironically, I have a coaching program. You've dealt with coaches, whatever it is. How do you get into the mindset of what they really want?
Yeah, so I do something that's it's infallible, but most people would never think to do this. I created this long ago. I call it the Amazon.com School of Business. So I take whatever it is I am trying to sell, and I understand benefit, advantage, what people want to get closer. Figuring out benefit and differentiators are not that big of a deal. I mean, you want it to look cool, you want it to look handsome. Those things are pretty general. So I go and I look up all the different, okay, let's start. A t-shirt's different. Let's say you were selling something a little bit easier for me to describe. Let's say you were selling a weight loss product, okay? So the first thing I would do is go online. I'd go on Amazon and I'd look for the last 3 or 4 years of every book on every top 10, 20 bestsellers for the last 3, 4, 5 years. And I'd look at the headline and the topic, the title and the subtitle. Sorry, I'm a little tired today. Of the best-selling books and the chapter titles. The reason is most books sell more by the promise than the content. So I would pick all the bestsellers. I'd get all the titles, subtitles, all the chapter titles. I'd strip them out and I'd put them in a category. Then I'd go, and this is where the real key comes in. Then I'd look at the reviews, the 0s and the 5s. I think that's all Amazon does anymore. 0 is terrible, 5 is exceptional. And I would look at what people who were passionately positive or negative had to say. And the reason is, if you ever thought about this, and everybody should think about this, when people are impassioned, really passionate, their subconscious overrides their conscious. Think about this. Anybody you've ever seen who's very happy or enormously unhappy, and you back out vulgarity, it's almost ironic. It's eerie how clear and how graphic imagery and how succinct and sinewy they express themselves. And it's really powerful. So I want to see what people say when they're very, very happy and pleased with something, what they say when they've been disappointed. And I start with books on the subject. Then I go to corollary books. So you'd start with weight loss, because weight loss is losing weight. Then I'd ask, well, why do you want to lose weight? It could be health. It could be beauty. It could be fitness. And I look at all the titles of those books and the same thing. So now I got all that. Then I go to discussion groups where people talk about methodology, products, differential supplements, exercise, trainers, portion control food, all that stuff. And I look at the comments again, the positives and the negatives. Then I go and I look at a bunch of competitors out there in every kind of a weight loss category of fitness. And weight loss categories mean they can have supplements, you can have portion control food, you can have equipment, you can have trainers, you can have recipes, you can have, all kinds of gyms. and I look at the positive, negatives in the language. So now I've got three categories. I've got everything I stripped from the books. Then I've got all the positives and all the negatives. And now I understand how to speak to your subconscious. And I know the reasons why you really want something, or the reason you've been disappointed with something. I know what you're trying to get closer to, and I know what you're trying to get away from. Then I take and I consolidate it on a hierarchy of like 80-20, that almost, that you're going to have this hierarchy of things that are said most often positive or negative, maybe a couple different ways. And I put those in an order of repetitiveness. Now I've got, how would I say it? I've got this direct access to your subconscious. Does that help you?
Yeah, 100%. And is that the same process you do to create the messaging around how you sell it?
Give you a message. It gives you far better headlines, copy, bullets. You're able to say, look, I know, Jason, what you want. I know you don't want this. And you can be so authentic and speak in language patterns that resonate, because people's subconscious express a lot. I mean, a typical copywriter gets a bunch of buzzwords. It's all the same. They understand benefit, advantage, but it's very superficial. It's outer periphery. I want to get beyond the deflector of the conscious and penetrate the subconscious that'll really reveal itself.
So I want to go deeper on this with you, because I think this is just too valuable. You used to sell seminars, and one of the first people to do it at $5,000, $10,000 a seat in high ticket seminars.
We actually sold them for as much as 30.
30,000. Sorry, I'm underpricing you here.
Yeah, we had expensive ones when I was your age.
So, I mean, but you're the perfect person to answer this, and on how do you create so much value in the mind of the people that they want to exchange large sums of money with you for something that they're used to paying very little, or even for getting for free? And how were you able to extract that $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 a seat seminar when people in the market were charging way less? How'd you create that differentiator?
I was very well trained by master level marketers and strategists. But next is I incorporated, before anybody understood the power of endorsement, the power of taking someone future pacing, the power of really qualitative bonusing, the power of sharing an intellectual validation to prove you knew your stuff, the power of case studies. I was doing that back in the 80s, frankly, and I was doing them with all immodesty, very, very masterfully. I would go and help people that had influence on entrepreneurs, and I would freely exchange my expertise with them agreeing once it paid off, they would endorse me unhedgingly in ways they never had to their audience, and I would help them articulate it. I was the most liberal, risk-averse person you've ever known. For example, we used to do $15,000 and $20,000 trainings on how to be a contingency marketing consultant in the very, very early 90s, and we sold them out. We sold everyone out we ever did it started at 15 and then it went to 20. And to put it in perspective, the average seminar then was about $600. And the reason we did it was, first of all, I got everybody that people respected to tell not just how good I was, but what I did for them and how I did it and what they learned. I basically then I gave them the reader of the sales letter, this was before the internet, an experiential lesson in about 8 actual methodologies that could validate right now. And I challenged them to go out and try it. I gave them also internal try this test gauntlets for them to look within themselves and to see if I was right in my assessment of who they were, what they wanted, where they were frustrated. And if I didn't understand them, and then I couldn't fulfill it. And if I told them that my methodology and my training would fulfill it, it was it. But then I had risk reversal that was sublime. This is better than anybody was ever doing there. So my first risk reversal was that before they ever even considered enrolling, I wanted to know what they were going to do with the training if they had it. And there were 3 or 4 options. Option 1 was they could become a marketing consultant. Option 2 is they could get a job in marketing. Option 3 is they could form an agency like yours. Option 4 or 5, whichever I just had, was they're a business owner and they want to be their own marketing consultant. Once I figured out what their goal, I helped them figure out their primary goal, I would send them validation from at least 20, 50 people just like them that had taken the training for that specific reason, who would confirm it. That was the second thing we did. The third thing we did is we in all of our risk reversal, the first thing was, I don't even want you to consider it if you can't feel confident that somebody just like you has gotten what they wanted. Second was, I wanted to give them, back when it was really valuable, a $2,000 training program to ground them in my marketing methodologies, not trained on how to be a consultant, but my marketing methodologies before I would ever let them even commit. They had to give me a good faith credit card, but I wouldn't even process it. Then if it rocked their boat and they wanted to enroll, they would enroll. They could either pay it by check or they could tell us to put it on their credit card, but we would not process it. We would not put it through. We would not deposit the check until 2:00 on the 3rd day of a 5-day event. And if they hadn't already gotten at least their $20,000 or $15,000, they could go to the back of the room and get their uncashed check or their unprocessed credit card form back. And all we asked was be discreet and don't disrupt the event. Third is, if they preferred, even though they gave me it for the full amount, they could decide that they wanted to pay over the next 12 months and I would rewrite it for them. I didn't care. I was glad to let them pay mostly after they profited, assuming they took action. Fifth, I actually gave them, on top of that, a guaranteed minimum they should get from applying it, that if they didn't, I would give them a pro rata back up to 100%. So, and then fourth, we were the first ones back when conference call bridges first came out. My company was one of 6 companies that had, maybe it was only 5, that had the first conference bridge. You could only get 50 people on it. AT&T had one because they were leasing them. The Pentagon had one. Sony Pictures had one. General Motors had one. We had one, 5. And we were the first ones to make that a bonus extension. So we did a 5-day training program, and then you would get weekly for 13 weeks in group with me, and then you would get monthly for the next 9 months with me as a follow-up to ensure you got a result. So we made it so compelling for its genre. Today it might not seem as good, but back then no one was willing to do that. No one was willing to take those risks. No one. And then there was one more thing. In all our promotion, we would have 3 to 5 pages of testimonials that would have the name of somebody. It wouldn't be JR, Los Angeles. It would be your name. It would be Montreal. It would have the name of your company. It would have the address of your company. And it would have a daytime phone number you could call. And it was ballsy. Nobody would do that. And I had people that were thrilled. I made them lots of money and they were tickled to affirm it. Nobody ever called them, but they were happy to do it if anybody called. And we had credibility. We had ballsiness. We had risk reversal on steroids. We had bonusing that we didn't give them after they came. We gave it to them before they ever committed. We had flexible payments. We did everything. And I also had, amazingly for its time, I had fabulous content.
So how would you, in this digital age that we're in right now, how would you do that right now? Or how would you, if someone's listening right now and sitting there saying, okay, look, I want to be high ticket, people are used to paying very little for this. I want to become the luxury brand of person or service in this space. How would you do it now? With sales letters are out, you have the ability to run ads. How would you market yourself now?
Well, I might take totally different. I haven't thought about it because I don't really do a lot of that anymore, but I probably take the tack of I wouldn't compete in the same generic arena everybody else does because you can't win. You can only have a little incremental advantage. So I wouldn't even play that game. I would probably take different paths to create my preemptiveness as opposed to not just preeminence, but preemptiveness, meaning I would depict myself totally different. I would explain, I mean, I would denominate perhaps, well, I mean, in my case, if I were doing myself, I could talk about, I would list, if it was, if it were doing it digitally, I would do, these aren't in the order, but we've done this before. We rotate the 7,127 different industries I've had impact on. We rotate the name of the 3,200 different books that refer to my work. We would show all the prominent people I've had impact on. We would then probably show the dollars that I have impacted. We would show all the different strategies that I've come up with. We would.
But that's using your name, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, how would you do it if you didn't have that name, right? Someone doesn't have the success maybe you have, or the Tony Robbins and the Daymond Johns and the amazing millions of people that you've helped and the billions of dollars in revenue. How did they get started?
How did Tony get started?
No, I'm just saying, how does
well, you mean
one of the listeners right now, they don't have your name, your reputation.
There's a very powerful concept that I learned when I was very young called preemptive positioning, and the analogy is very old, but it's a true story. One of the greatest copywriters of all time, direct response experts, Claude Hopkins. This is what he's known for. It's called the Schlitz beer story, and it's quite profound. So he was master at taking generic competitive fields and giving his client superiority, like you're saying. And he was asked right after Prohibition, when all the beer companies came back and all the wine companies, there were about 40 beer companies out there, and all their ads were the same. They all said pure, pure, pure beer, pure beer. And the Schlitz company was number 9 or 10 or 11. And they called him out to help him. And he was one of these guys who would never take anyone as a client unless he'd visited, he'd observed it, he saw what they did, how they did it, who they did it for. He looked at the training the people had. And so he goes, and the first thing he did, it was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which, if you happen to not know where it is, it's on the banks of Lake Michigan. So he gets out of his car, he goes in towards the brewery, and it's right on the banks of Lake Michigan. And he was incredulous because they had 2 5,000 feet deep artesian wells, right, 500 feet from the shore. And back then, this is long ago, excuse the ding, it was long ago where, the lake was very azure blue, it was gorgeous, it was clean, pure. And he goes, why don't you use that water? And they said, because the beer we make has to have a certain mineral content that is only achievable by coming up from the core of the earth. That was interesting. So they go inside, there's a mother yeast cell, and they told him that this was the result of 1,428 different test experiments and variations to find the perfect, I don't know what that is, sorry, the perfect embodiment of purity, bitterness, sweetness, foam. And it had taken him years to find this embodiment. That was pretty interesting. Then they took him into the distillation room. And this is really interesting, Jason. They took that water that they had just brought up from 5,000 feet, and they vaporized it, they liquefied it, they vaporized it, they liquefied it, they vaporized it, they liquefied it, not once or twice, but something like 9 times. And he was like confused. Why you do that? And they said, even though it has the right mineral content, it also has certain undesirable components, and we have to purge those out while keeping that. That was interesting. Then they showed him the sterilization room where they took these bottles, these glass bottles, and they sterilized them, I think 9 times, 2 times with 2,000 degrees steam, 3 times in chemical dippings. I can't remember the rest of the things. That's pretty amazing. Then they showed him the bottling. This is where it was really interesting, with all those precautions, those very, very masterful procedures, they still rejected something like 1 out of every 9 batches. When he was done with his tour, he said, we have to tell the story of how you make your beer. Operative word is how you make your beer. And they said, well, that's how all beer is made. And he said, but nobody seems to think the public cares about it. If you tell your story, you will get preemptive advantage, and they'll think you alone are the one that does it, and anyone else that tries to follow up will just seem like a me too. So the answer, I can give you lots of examples of that same methodology, but the answer is tell the story of what you do, how you do it, what it took to do it, what you do to end up being able to do it, the research you do, the methodical, how many drafts you write, whatever the hell you do, even if it's what everybody does, because your target audience, they don't tell that because they don't think they're interested. That elevates the perception of who you are versus everybody else.
I love that. And especially in the online marketing world, I think there's a lot of people trying to market and compete with other marketers. Well, no one's actually marketing towards their desired audience, right? It's everyone's just trying to compete with the other guru of how you know more and they know more and that person. And no one ever goes after the audience who has no clue what's going on anyways.
It's a very powerful. I mean, years ago, I had a relatively successful retail chain, and they sold very high-end women's handbags and shoes. But they didn't sell anything that other high-end stores didn't. But we gave them a unique personality because we calculated all the shoe shows they went to, all the flights of stairs they walked up, all the thousands and thousands and thousands of pairs of shoes they looked at to pick the 12 from a given line or brand or company, all the different tens of thousands of miles they flew all over to Italy, to wherever. And it was no different than anybody, but no one had ever told that story. And it made the fact that the shoes they chose for the consumer, the handbags they chose, they had to be perfectly matched. The skins had to be right. There could be no errors in the hardware. Well, that's what anybody's selling $500 or $1,000 shoes, or anybody selling $10,000 handbags would do, but nobody told the story that way.
So one thing I love about you is, as someone who's consumed a lot of your content, and just, I mean, I was telling Brian this offline that, whether anyone in the marketing world or coaching business has been influenced by you, whether they met you or know who you are, even, I think you've influenced a ton of people. But listening to you, when I've seen you do the rapid response, people line up at the microphone, ask you a question, and you deliver, where that seems to be your element where you really thrive. I find a lot of the answers, and I mean no disrespect about this at all, simplistic. Do you think people overcomplicate business?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the great gifts I have, but it's also sometimes been a bane, is that I'm able to take very complex things and reduce them down to such elegant simplicity and such logic that people sometimes discount it because they're looking for this, this rocky tectonic breakthrough. And when in fact, it's just, I mean, three ways to grow a business that I'm known for: simple. 9 drivers, simple. Preemptive marketing, simple. I mean, I could get, risk reversal, there's many gradients, simple. Allowable acquisition costs, simple. I mean, it's very simple stuff, but most people, they never thought about it that way before.
Do you think that also gets people to dismiss some of the advice, because then they go seek out okay, it can't be that easy to fix my business. I got to go find the guy who has that magic pill, or that really complex thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's the most hilarious thing in the world is I have 90 different methodologies I've pioneered or evolved over my career, of which 40 of them are the last 2 years. And yet the other 50 are still universal. They still work. I've transformed businesses just by one little shift using something that I was talking about 20 years ago. It might be a little different implication, but people want to hear, people want new drugs. it was hilarious, Jason. We used to do 3 and 5 day seminars. We'd sell them out, 1,000 people at a time, very expensive, did them every month. And I would teach people so many mechanisms that it was transactionally improbable, if not impossible, they would even do 10%. And you didn't have to. You do one thing if you're not doing any of them, and it can explode your business. You do the 3-way explode your business. You do a power partner explode your business. I've seen changing an offer, changing risk reversal, double response. I've seen the right test before everyone had the algorithmic tests, and all the automated ones just manually do something that changed your business. But I was always fascinated. I stopped doing seminars because I got tired of people wanting new drugs. We would teach them, let's call it 50 different categories. They would maybe do half-assed one, never do any more, never take the one to, if you take, for example, the 3 ways to grow a business, when we first introduced it, we had 35 or 40 elements that you could do within it. Most people didn't even do one of them.
Yeah.
We did the advanced 3 ways. Most people didn't do any of them. If they did any of them, they do it one way and one time, whereas you could keep doing it and iterating it. And I would get frustrated because when we would try to sell a repeat of the same thing, because I believe that you rinse and repeat, you iterate, you evolve, that things you didn't really appreciate become very powerful to you when you validate one predecessor of that. People would go, well, I already know all that. And we would say, oh, great. Tell me the last 30 or 40 tests that you've tried. Tell me some of the different risk reversals you've tried. Tell me some of the different endorsement strategies you've used. Tell me about some of the new front ends you've done. Tell me about 1 or 2 of the new back ends you've come up with. Tell me about some of the new packages you've used. Tell me, and I just go on, and they go, well I haven't done any of this. And I thought, I don't have the energy. I know it. You don't want to know it. It's okay. It's all right.
And it's also funny because I think everyone chases the next tactic or latest hack versus the foundations of building a proper business, which is why I don't look at the new marketers now, right? The platforms have changed. I don't look at new marketers. I love studying the old stuff because I think you give David Ogilvy the internet now, he's not talking about iOS changes and algorithms, right? He's selling millions of dollars. He's like, what do you mean? I could get this out to everyone. Yeah. So I also, what I find really interesting is when I watch you do those live, a lot of people say, okay, I heard you answer for his business, but what about my business? And your answer is the same. Do you think business is business? And we just minus some nuances, but like,
well, yeah. I mean, I'll preempt and answer you. So this is not meant to be arrogant, but I have I've taught, applied, collaborated, or been validated on 5 continents with over 1,000 main industries and 7,000 sub-industries. I have probably, just so you know it, probably more tactical experts out there that have been influenced by the body of work, everyone from Russell Brunson to the old copywriters. I mean, I've got a video montage of about 40. I don't even know all the current guys, but they all gave me testimonials because they were influenced by my bodies and work. And I'm not saying it. I mean, I'm an emissary from people that lived before me. It's, I was able, I'm like Tony. Tony Robbins, who I do stuff with. He's a great synthesizer. I'm just a very good synthesizer. I'm not an original thinker, but I'm an original synthesizer. I can take things that have been around from time immemorial, and they will be, and slice them, dice them, upgrade them. But they work. I mean, I had the #1 candy company in China. I had the #1 cosmetic surgery group that had 87 successful offices in Japan. I had the #1 what would we call it? It's content management software in Germany. I mean, it's universal. But if you don't believe it, there's that adage, if you know, whatever you believe, you can conceive. If you think you're right or wrong, you're right. If you believe it's bullshit and it's old, it's antiquated, it's no longer viable, and you need to find a new drug, you're right. But the big to address an issue that I'm really very passionate about, I think there are a lot of very knowledgeable tacticians out there. You talked about tactics, but tactics should only be used to deploy a strategy. Most people are terribly poor strategists. They have no strategy is tactic. They don't even have a good strategy. They don't have a good business model. You know, it's very interesting. If we go into the level of whether it's recession or just downturn, it's going to be very interesting because most people don't have the agility. They don't have the comprehensive ability to really see the opportunities. You know, I was asked for, I was asked for Tony's people to come up with some stratagems because Tony and I do a day together with his high-end, his platinum partners and his lions. And that's where we line people up and do them against, we do them for 8-10 hours. People stand, well, they can't do it virtually, but when they're live, you know, we have 40 people at 2 different mics each, and it's hilarious. But they were saying, well, what do you do when you know, when the cost of, when response is lower and the cost of a lead is higher and conversion's lower? I said, well, first of all, you have to basically shift your priorities. You go quality over quantity. If you can't make the front end work, you better have a hell of a lot of back end. You better have a hell of a lot of packaging. You better change your business model, because if you can't change the reality, you change your strategic response to it.
So you open this up. So I'm gonna go there. I wanted to kind of wrap up about talking about the economic downturn and a recession and what a plan kind of looks like. But I have to ask, you're working on something with Tony about the strategies of how do you thrive and take advantage of a recession?
Yeah.
You mind sharing some of those strategies here?
I can share a few. So, I mean, I've got 60. I mean, I wrote a book that we issued in 1991. I've lived through, I think, 8 or 9 downturns. By the way, I'll share with you towards the end some of the new projects I'm working on. That's not going to benefit me, but I'll share some of the ideology and the methodology real quickly at the end of the montage. So, you know, first of all, is what do you have to deal with in a down market? Well, there's 4 or 5 psychological things. You've got ambivalence, you've got uncertainty, you've got ambivalence, uncertainty, and apprehension. And uncertainty has different things than apprehension. Ambivalence is not believing anyone anymore. I mean, there's too many people saying the same thing and people don't believe them. Uncertainty has many gradients. It's uncertainty about where the future is going to be, uncertainty about where to make your commitment in dollars. Is this the right place to put it? Will I release it and never get it back and need it later? Uncertainty about whether I will do what is optimal if I make that commitment, whether it's information follow through, whether it's, you know, if I want to buy, like I have a daughter that wants to buy a very expensive horse, very expensive, and she's contemplating getting it. But if she gets it, even though it'll give her joy, she'll be in debt. She'll have a lot of, and if anything goes wrong, it flips. So, and then the other is so there's ambivalence, apprehension. And apprehension is paralysis. So if you're marketing to all 3 of those, and there's other, I mean, I'm a little tired today, so bear with me. If you're marketing to all those, you better be able to show really compelling reasons why whatever you're selling and what you're offering now overcomes that, and it's more desirable, pragmatic, profitable, economic to do it now than in the future. And if you can't do that, that's one thing that's wrong. The next thing is what should you do? Well, the first thing you need to do is know the gradients of buyers. You need to know what different value buyers are worth. People don't understand that all buyers aren't worth the same. Maybe in online marketing they do now. But it's funny, I have a very, very large client who's the number one brand in the whole field in one category of cars worldwide, not in North America, worldwide. And when I met him, and I'm not a good online marketer, but I understand data and strategy better than most. And he said, wow, he said, we're so proud. We got our cost of a Facebook generated automobile sale down from $400 to $310. That's the first thing he said. And I said, well, I wouldn't be that excited. And he said, what do you mean? I said, did you correlate whether that cost you more than you saved? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, maybe you eliminated the ones that are the profit's 10,000 to keep the ones that the profit's 1,000. And people don't analyze anything in data. All buyers, all prospects, all sources, all responded to different positionings. They're not worth the same. They're all worth different. And if you don't have analysis of that, you either spend too much or too little. And I don't think most people realize allowable cost. Even today, I think, Jason, they either allocate an arbitrary amount or they allocate a percentage of last month's sales or quarterly sales. Whereas I was taught that you have an unlimited budget up to a certain amount. I was talking to a car dealer last night, a different one, and we were saying, all things being equal, today car dealers don't have inventory, but if you had an infinite amount of supply or capacity, and your normal business was X. So when you get past X, if you have infinite capacity or supply above that, anything you spend short of breaking even is profitable. And if you have a back end, it's a hell of a deal. We did Icy Hot years ago. People know the story that's followed me, but it was a mail order product when I did it. Now it's very popular in the United States. It's huge. But it was a mail order product that sold for $3. We bought an old company out of almost bankruptcy. We were going to close it. We found out that every time we got 10 new $3 buyers, mail order, 8 of them repurchased every month forever until they died or there was a cure for arthritis, which there wasn't. But that wasn't everything we found out. We found out that of the 8, 4 of them bought something else every time. We had other products in the line. That wasn't all. Of the 4, approximately 2 bought twice a year in bulk as gifts. And the bottom line was every time we got 10 $3 purchases, irrespective of the 2 that didn't buy ever again, we made $50 profit a year on those 10. And we were willing to lose 115% of the first sale to get that buyer because we made all this money on the back end. But as I got older, I realized that was stupid as hell. Had we been willing to lose a lot more, we could have gotten a lot more because we did all kinds of performance deals. We had 1,000 radio stations, televisions, stations, magazines, newspapers, all running ads for us strictly on performance contingency, where we only paid them for results. We let them keep all the money, but we were short-sighted. We only gave them, if they sold a $3 bottle, we'd let them keep $3.45. We paid them more than they kept. But we could have spent, if our cash flow was good, we could have given them $49 for every $3 sale, and we still would have made $50 on every 10. I mean, we just didn't think clearly. But most people don't realize up to a certain acquisition cost, you have an unlimited budget. Most people don't think that way.
I also think there's the reverse also, right? Most people are too data driven and they don't focus on the rest of the marketing. And I also think that a lot of brands could twist and analyze data from here to tomorrow, and it leads to paralysis. So if I could push you on this, if for a listener listening right now, what's probably the 3 to 5 most important metrics that they need data on in order to operate their business and grow their business?
Well, you want to know what the 80-20 rule, how it applies. You want to know how the 80-20 rule applies. You want to know what category is many times more profitable than others. And you want to know what commonalities there are to generating those, first of all. You want to know who's already, I mean, I always default. Come on, 1 second. I'm gonna yell. I'm gonna turn. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Sorry, it's me. Okay. I generated for my clients and we did $250 million of of seminars when I was your age, and we paid in fixed fee like 300 grand. All of it was by having endorsers, partners, icons that promoted, endorsed, and recommended us to their databases, their subscribers, their buyers, their seminar attendees, their book buyers, their clientele. So you want to know who already has trusted, direct, non-competitive access to the same audience market you want, who could be highly motivated to generate for you either buyers of the product or service you sell, or an entry-level product or service that would get relationships started with you. If you figure that out, you can own your world and you have an unlimited budget. You'll never, and you also have to figure out whose problem or opportunity do you solve that you've never thought about. I'll tell you a quick ending story, and then I'll data dump you with a couple of things I'm working on that'll stimulate people. So many years ago, I did my first seminar in China, and it was really well received. And I always did Q&A with translators. And a young man came up to the mic and he said, "Jay, what do you do if you're too small and the banks won't lend you money to grow?" And I said, "Well, tell me more." And he said, "I am a local motorcycle manufacturer." Now, only in China with 100 million city population would you be a local motorcycle manufacturer. And he said, "If I had the money, I'd go all over Asia. I'd open a factory. I'd hire salespeople and open offices in every country, recruit dealers and sell my motorcycles everywhere." I did say motorcycles, didn't I?
Yep.
And I said, "Well, it's not, you don't have a problem." He goes, "Well, the bank won't lend me money." I said, "That's not the problem. Your problem is always going to be the solution to someone's bigger problem or under-recognized opportunity. You might have to figure out who they are and help them figure out what it is. But once you do, you'll own the world." And I said, "Go on a road trip all over Asia, find somebody in a non-competitive, compatible field who's got a huge factory, they're not being fully utilized, has offices everywhere, has salespeople and dealers, and partner with them." Took me a minute. I came back 15 months later. This young man comes to the mic again, and he's smiling like the Cheshire Cat, very happy. And he said, "I did what you said." And I said, "I don't even remember because I answer problems all the time, Jason." He said, what did you do?" He goes, "I did what you said. I went all over Asia. When I got to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, I found Asia's largest lawnmower manufacturer. Very nice man. Had a huge factory, was underutilized in the second shift, had all the equipment. He had offices in 10 countries. He had salespeople. He had thousands of dealers. All I had to do was come and provide him with the tools and the dies. If people don't know what those are the molds that help create the assemblies that come together to make a product. And I had to teach him how to do it. I had to educate the salespeople on how to recruit the dealers and help the dealers sell the motorcycles. He said, in our first full year partnering, after everything, we both made separately $15 million. I have a philosophy that you have an unlimited amount of resources. You'll never be resource impaired because there's always somebody else that has what you want, what you need, whether it's skill, whether it's assets, whether it's distribution, whether it's access, and you just have to figure out who they are. So that's that. And I'll give you about 4 things I'm working on now that are rather interesting. And then I have to go because I got to get shots from my doctor. But I'm working on 4 books and some new themes. The theme that I'm most interested in is called E squared. It means being an exponential entrepreneur. And I believe there's 2 kinds of business people, an incremental and an exponential one. Incremental is content with linear, incremental, oftentimes static, tactical growth. An exponential one understands how to get beyond exponential performance out of everything they do, everyone they do it with, every opportunity, and they understand that it's very doable, and they understand how to optimize highest and best use of everything they do, everyone they do it with, every opportunity they have, every dollar they spend, every interaction they have, every lead they generate. And it's a very different mindset. And we're working on that. I have a book that's coming out that's called Creating Business Wealth Without Risk. And the subtitle is How to Earn the income of a lifetime every 3 years. And basically the premise is, why start a business from scratch when you have a 1 in 20 or 25 success rate, 5% maybe, when you can get control of a business. And by the way, most businesses don't make it past 5 years, only 10%. You can get control of a business that's already done all that. You can use all kinds of external financing, but not your own money. It's underperforming. You get underperforming businesses. You use my kind of methodology. You blow it up and you flip it because you multiply the EBITDA tremendously, and you sell it for highly marked up multiples over what you paid, and you rinse and repeat. You do it all your life. You can do that with a business. Instead of growing conventionally by regular marketing and organic, you can basically also add acquisitions of competitive business, of alternative type businesses, of products and services business people buy before, during, after, instead, of websites, of databases, of sales forces, and it's pretty cool. That interests me. I'm doing one called the Alpha Life with a very famous hedge fund manager, and the premise is that hedge funds have two dimensions that they look at. They look at asymmetric return upside, which is outsized upside performance, and de-risking the down. And you can take that ideology, Jason, and overlay it to all parts of your life, your career, your relationship, your health, your happiness. And most people don't know what's possible. I'm doing one with a very prominent CEO, high-level executive coach, who right now does the CEO and the COO of Nike, but he's also done the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange, the military's Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's done the Harvard leadership program, and we're working on a concept that's called your Promethean moment. The concept is you're at a crossroads right now, where Promethean was the Greek god of, he went up in the mountain and stole fire from the gods and gave it to the populace. This is your moment to become a Promethean CEO or entrepreneur, where you have, the Chinese has a symbol for crisis, and it means two things: danger, opportunity, depending on how you look at it. And we're building what's called the CEO playbook. And the concept is, most people don't understand, you're trying to win a game where all the rules have changed. And if you don't know what the new rules are, there's no way you can possibly win it. And you have to be able to understand what all your formidable adversaries, how they're playing it. And adversaries aren't just competition, it's economy, it's psychology of the market, it's the Ukraine, it's interest rates, it's ambivalence, things like that. Those things interest me a lot. What do you want to ask in the last? I hope this has been interesting.
Oh man, I think there's so much. I think we're gonna have to do a podcast number 2. That I'm just putting that out there, because I could go on for hours talking with you. I mean, I'll leave it up to you. Is there anything that Rich Sheffrin, another mutual friend, he likes to end his talks, and I kind of love it this way, and I think this is perfect for you. Is there anything that I should have asked you but didn't, or anything that people don't ask you but should?
Yeah, and that's good. And he borrowed that from something I taught him years ago, and I'm glad he does that, because that's right. That's the right way to do it. I learned it from somebody else. It wasn't original. It was not original, but I use it and he uses it, and everyone should use that. But I stand for being preeminent. Preeminence means that as a business owner, you focus on not yourself, not your business, not being the fastest growing, not falling in love with your industry. You fall in love with the market you serve, and you live to make their lives better each time you are in it. You try to understand and appreciate, examine what their life is like and how you interface with them. You ask yourself the question, what do I stand for? Why do I stand for it? Who do I stand for? What does standing for it mean as far as how I express it? And if you don't have good answers, you better get them. And to be a great preeminent entrepreneur, you have an obsession for making a profound higher difference in people's lives. And you realize that wealth is the reward for the contributions you made. We are rewarded in life, Jason, in direct proportion to the quantity, quality, and consistency of problems we solve and opportunities we make possible for others. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. I'm sorry I have to go early. Bye.
Bye. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want, check out our most recent video over here. And this one is the one YouTube thinks you'll like. But if you really enjoyed watching, please do me a favor, like and subscribe over here. Thank you so much.